In the previous video, we glanced at the internal structure of heart. We could understand how exactly the chambers of the heart take up their responsibilities. Thus, the right atrium and the right ventricle are known to receive and distribute deoxygenated blood. On the other hand, the left atrium and the left ventricle deal with receiving and distribution of oxygenated blood respectively. If you're not sure about which side deals with oxygenated blood and which one with deoxygenated, then just remember the Lord. Left oxygenated and right deoxygenated. Now when we say receiving and distributing chambers, what do we mean exactly? Where does the blood come from and where does it go? Let's simplify this as well. We know that heart is a pumping organ, so the heart pumps the blood to two major destinations. One is the lungs and the other is to the entire body. So let's see how blood flows in this process of circulation. For simplicity, let's assume this to be the rough sketch of our heart. Right atrium, right ventricle, and left atrium, left ventricle. So the deoxygenated blood from all over the body comes to the right atrium. From here, it is sent to the right ventricle. And where does it go from here? The right ventricle distributes it to the lungs. In the lungs, the alveoli help in oxygenation process, thereby adding fresh oxygen to the blood. The oxygenated or pure blood is carried to the left atrium and sent further to the left ventricle. From here, the oxygenated blood is distributed all over the body. This was the process in short. Deoxygenated blood from the body to the right atrium, then to the right ventricle, then to the lungs for purification, then to the left atrium, from here to the left ventricle, and then oxygenated blood is distributed all over the body. Now, let's talk about these pipes, which aid in the flow of blood. We know that veins carry deoxygenated blood, while the arteries carry oxygenated blood. So according to convention, we paint them in blue and red respectively. It's just a standard for notation. The blood flowing through the veins is not actually blue in color. So the two major veins carrying deoxygenated blood to the right atrium are the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The superior vena cava gets deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body, and the inferior vena cava gets deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body. Blood vessels carrying deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs are the pulmonary arteries. Yes, they are the only arteries in the body that carry deoxygenated blood. Similarly, the only veins carrying oxygenated blood from lungs to the left atrium are the pulmonary veins. And lastly, it's the aorta that carries this oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the entire body. There's another interesting thing we need to know. Now, since there is so much pressure created when the ventricles pump out blood, there are chances that it flows back into the atria. But this doesn't happen. Do you know why? This is made sure by the valves which guard the junctions of these two partitions. We have the tricuspid valve at the junction of right atrium and right ventricle. And similarly, we have the bicuspid valve at the junction of the left atrium and the ventricle. Now that we have an idea, let's have a glance at the complete process of blood circulation once. This is a representation of how the actual heart looks. First, the deoxygenated blood from the upper and lower parts of the body is brought to the right atrium by the superior and inferior vena cava respectively. From here, the deoxygenated blood is sent down to the right ventricle, and the right ventricle then sends the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. While doing so, the tricuspid valve prevents the backflow of blood to the right atrium. It makes sure that the blood enters only the pulmonary arteries from where it travels to the lungs. After the blood is oxygenated in the alveoli present in the lungs, it gets back to the heart flowing through the pulmonary veins. These pulmonary veins take the oxygenated blood to the left atrium from where it is sent to the left ventricle. From here, it is sent to the body for circulation. Again here, the backflow of blood into the left atrium is guarded by the bicuspid valve. The aorta, which is the largest artery in the body, carries the oxygenated blood from the left ventricle and supplies it to the body. This is how blood circulation occurs in our body. The deoxygenated blood from the body is sent to lungs for purification. It gets oxygenated or purified by the lungs, and then the oxygenated blood is sent to the body from the lungs. And both these processes are handled appropriately by the heart. On keen observation, you will notice that this involves the arrival of blood twice in the heart. Hence, we refer to it as the double circulation. This type is the characteristic feature of higher animals like mammals and birds.